Hello and welcome to another episode of the E-murging Artist, the podcast that goes behind the scenes to talk about challenges, joys, mindset, and everything else that has to do with being a creative person and just navigating the freelance life. This episode is very much close to my heart at the moment, and many of you ask me how I get my themes, how I get inspired, and what things I prepare. And really what I do is I just listen to how I'm feeling at the moment and what thoughts come in my head. And I make the theme of the week just before I film and record. So this week's episode is really how I'm feeling at the moment. And because I have felt like this in the past, I hope that it brings you some comfort and some relief. As always, be sure to tune in, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. We are on Spotify and YouTube. I don't know why I say we as a one-woman show, but me and you and everyone who's tuning in, we are on Spotify and YouTube, and there's a new episode coming every week. I really appreciate your support and your messages. So this is what fuels me and what makes me want to make more of those to deliver to you. Today's episode will touch on hurtful self-talk, and the phrase that I used in the title is a phrase that I used to use all the time when I was feeling kind of down, and it's really how I feel at the moment. Sadly, I feel a bit stuck creatively, and I feel like there's not much going on in my life, although many of you have told me that on Instagram I look very active and I look like I have many projects going on. Not really. And that's a trap. I talked about this in the previous episode about comparison. So if you haven't done so already, please go check that out. But I am feeling a bit low at the moment, and I recognize this when I do feel like that, when I don't have many things to kind of trigger my creative brain in a nice way. I tend to judge myself and kind of feel bad about not doing things. And this is why it's really important to recognize the periods in your life when this happens. Because for me, my kind of mechanism is to start feeling bad about myself and to start kind of really say hurtful things to myself, which is not great when you're already feeling low. So I would say things like, maybe I'm too old for this, and maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe there aren't enough things out there, and I don't know to what extent these are true, because they might be, but also what I've come to realize and what I would like to share with you in case it's helpful for you is that none of these matter. All of these are constructs of our own head, and they're kind of like a way to put the blame on something instead of really unpacking that. Because when you're feeling down, it's really difficult to deal with things. It's really difficult to manage your emotions and to self-regulate and everything. So I tend to kind of want to say hurtful things to myself. I don't want to, but that's what I end up doing. So I'm in this phase where I'm trying to recognize it, I'm trying to become aware of it and acknowledge that it's happening. But then this shift from hurtful to helpful is really, really useful. So finding ways of making that self-talk really positive and really nurturing and really compassionate about yourself. In that, I always used to kind of want to rationalize things. So when I said I'm too old for this thing, or I'm too old for a career as a performer or whatever, I would look at other people that have studied early, that were like maybe child performers, or they had a career break really early on. And I would compare myself to this, and I would be like, oh, but they're 18, they're 20, and they've done so much already. They worked in really famous institutions and really famous projects, and I'm still considered an early career artist, but I'm way older than them. And I would waste so much time and energy and really, what I should have been saying is I don't have energy for this. So to not get involved in this comparison in the first place, or to not be involved in talking to myself in such way, because that's wasting way more energy than the actual thing. And it's really understandable why we might do that, or why I was doing that, and I still am to an extent, which is why I share this with you. I'm sharing this so I can, let my thoughts out and be out there, and then I see them, and once I see them, I can really pick them out and be like, why? No. We hear so many things in seminars, in workshops, and in beautiful community spaces that success isn't linear. And that's very, very true. Like, our journey goes like a roller coaster, and you might be on the down for too long, but who knows what time frame we should be using, and we might see ourselves on a year by year basis. But that's not even valid for many, many people. Many people had like a very long kind of down, or like, let's not call it down even, let's call it like a learning curve. They had like 5 years or like 10 years even of a learning curve to then go back to an ascending mode. So all these are really relevant, and what I am trying to implement in my journey is to not judge every step that I take, and not judge even like a longer time frame for my journey, but really make sure that every step that I take, or like most steps that I take, most decisions that I take, really align with my values as a person and as a professional and as an artist. So this thing has been my only compass. And I really encourage you to look at your values, to really look at who you would want to collaborate with, what kind of spaces you're interested in being part of, what communities you're interested in being part of, and really create your world and create your support bubble around this. And rather than saying like really hurtful statements, or like treating yourself like this, because you wouldn't treat another person like this, but sometimes we treat ourselves in the worst possible way. So instead of doing that, you could look at the environment, the people, the projects that make you happy and excited to be part of. Maybe a radical way of tackling this as well, I found that can be, if I write on a piece of paper everything that I'm telling myself, all the hurtful comments, all the bad things that I'm telling myself, that I'm too old to be a performer, for example, or I don't have many opportunities to choreograph, I don't know enough people, I don't, all these things. And I write them down as a list or as a text, whatever. And I look at them. Then it's kind of like it's not in my head anymore. It's not a curse. And you can even take it further as to make a ritual about this. And I found it really, really cathartic to kind of tear that piece of paper or even set it on fire. Choose your own kind of ritual and choose your own way of processing that. You're an artist, you know better than anyone else how you would like to process these feelings, these emotions, and this whole transformation of thinking. I know it's really challenging, especially in these times in the arts, and especially when we always set up goals for ourselves and we're kind of trying to achieve them within a time frame and everything, and to have like an overarching artistic vision and strategy maybe. But it's really important to stay in this self-compassionate space and to really respect our boundaries and respect ourselves as human beings. as I said before, you wouldn't do this to another person. So really think about that when you are kind of practicing this self-talk. For me, it's really important as well to be reminded of how many things are said by society or the industry or for historical reasons, and how many things we've inherited without even questioning them. For example, the age thing, which is kind of like a very kind of clear example of this negative self-talk, is who says that the younger the better, you know? And have you ever stopped and thought about that for a second? Because I feel many things are just given and we carry them around like a backpack full of rocks. And once you let go of them and you start dropping off rocks along the way, expectations or standards or, you know, whatever else that is not your choice, but it's something that was in the backpack from the beginning, you start letting go of that weight and it feels way more centered and way more aligned to who you are as a person and as an artist. So really try to recognize and question even the rocks that you have in your backpack. A beautiful, beautiful way of understanding this was actually a phrase or like an idea that came out of a dance conference that I attended. There's an organization, a fantastic, fantastic organization called Dancers Careers Development, DCD, which have supported me a million. Like, they've given me so much and I'm so, so grateful to them. So they were holding their annual conference, and one of the panel speakers there, and I promised to find his name and put it in the comments, he talked about late specialization. And when I heard that, it was mind-blowing. He was saying that traditionally in the Western world, we try to catch up, and I don't know, from a very, very young age, we're kind of obsessed with specializing, and we do everything to make sure that we're so well informed and we've covered all bases. And by the age of like 23 or 24, many people will have had a master's degree, and we're so obsessed with like being so, you know, finding the niche and specializing without even having had life experiences. And so he was talking about the idea of late specialization and how people can pursue PhD degrees and even master's degrees, and anyway, higher education much later than what is normal, what is the norm. So people in their 40s, 50s, 60s and on, they really find their groove. And I was so excited to hear that, because it made so much sense to me, and it kind of alleviated that pain or that kind of anxiety about how much of an expert am I in anything at all at this age. But also, it really, really hit home to me, because in Greece, we are so obsessed with getting university degrees, and we are so obsessed with doing that really early on. I had my proficiency certificate in English when I was 14 and a half. That is really early. That was the C2 equivalent. And I have, you know, I studied architecture. That was BA and MA equivalent. And then I got an MFA in choreography, but that was a journey, and most people do that. They would get an MA degree or higher, and then you're 25 and you don't know what to do, and you don't know what you want, and you don't know, and you feel so guilty and so bad about having studied something that you are questioning your alignment with it. So that whole idea of late specialization, it gave me so much relief and so much joy to hear. and I felt validated because I just wanted to try things on, and I didn't think it's normal having to pick even what you want to study when you are 17 or 18. You have zero clue what you like. You might, yeah, I knew what I wanted to be as an artist when I was very young, because that's been my passion, but I didn't know what studying looked like or what kind of subjects you would have or anything. So why is that normal, and why do we do that? Well, that's a rhetorical question, because I don't know if that's changing anytime soon. But the early specialization and late specialization kind of separation really gave me a lot to think about. It's been a very, very emotional episode for me. So I hope that the tools that I shared offer you some ways of coping with negative emotions and ways of talking to yourself that are not helpful but are harmful or, hurtful in some ways. And I want to share with you an idea that came from my friend Anthi. When I chatted to her about how I feel these days and what kind of impact it has on my mood and on my relationship with myself, she also told me that I could write a letter to myself telling me what things I would like to hear. And this exercise is so simple but so profound, and the impact that it has just shifts the whole atmosphere and the whole idea of what you should be, how you should be treating yourself. So I invite you and I encourage you to write this letter to yourself, just a 1-pager, telling yourself what you would like to hear. And I really encourage you to tune into your intuition and your self-compassion and kindness and generosity, and right through that angle. I'm sure this will be a healing process, and every time you kind of feel bad about yourself and you have these creeping thoughts about being too old, being not being good enough, and whatever else you might tell yourself, really write that letter or read that letter, keep it for later, and refer to it when you really need it. So this is one exercise, and then the other thing is what I shared earlier. So write the things that you're thinking and you're saying to yourself, and really burn that damn paper. Like, shred it to pieces, step on it. I don't know what you will do, dance it out. But really make it have its own way and its own journey away from you, because you don't need it, and you can save your energy, you can save you can save all your pieces together and just live a joyful life. If only it was simple as that. So, my friends, I am on this journey at the moment, and it's difficult, I'm not gonna lie, and it's an ongoing thing. When I feel down because of external reasons, I turn to myself and do this to me, and I don't like it. But I hope that if I share this, maybe someone will relate and some can find support through that. So I really hope that it gives you something today, and I will see you in the next episode. Hopefully it'll be a more positive one, but who knows? This is the challenge of a life of an artist. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.